Now, the feud between the president and the Fed is testing the very nature of the bank. The Fed's mandate is set by Congress, not by the White House. We always talk about the dual mandate, full employment and price stability. The Board of Governors, of course, is led by Jay Powell and carries out its missions independently. There are 7 members of the board. Don't forget, there's also the various regional presidents, and they vote as well. Now, whilst the president nominates Fed chair and its governors, the central bank is historically left to set monetary policy on its own. So his role is to nominate this lot. Congress then confirms with the advice and consent of the Senate. And that's how we get to where we are. However, remember what I said about cause. It is Section 10 of the Federal Reserve Act. There we go. A Fed governor can only be removed by the president for cause. It's crucial. And remember as well, the Fed, as the Fed says in its statement, the governors are appointed for 14-year terms, specifically so that there can be no cross suggestions. Christine Chabot is the Associate Professor of Law at Marquette University, joins me now. Professor, good to see you. This is...
Hello.
I mean, knowing what you know of the facts, does it seem as if there are cause sufficient to break the virginity of 111 years of no Fed governor being removed for cause?
Sure. And I think this is actually something that is uncharted territory because we are breaking a norm where presidents have generally left the governors of the Federal Reserve alone. And there are a distinct set of legal questions. As you know, Trump has engaged in other firings of other heads of different agencies, but the Federal Reserve is different for 3 reasons, or this particular firing is different for 3 reasons. First of all, there's a legal question under the statute as to what does cause mean? Does it include the type of conduct that Trump has alleged here? There's a further question as to the facts. Has Governor Cook, in fact, committed the alleged mortgage fraud, as President Trump claims? And third, there's really going to be a question, I think, legally as to the balance of the equities to the extent that Governor Cook seeks reinstatement like other fired officers have sought. In general, now the Supreme Court has not been receptive to claims for reinstatement during the pendency of litigation. They've said it's someone to be removed during that period. So you might question whether that same kind of principle will apply to Cook. However, in Trump versus Wilcox, they did have a carve out for the Federal Reserve. And to the extent the Supreme Court feels that Trump's assertion of cause is here really a pretext designed to bully members of the Federal Reserve to comply with his policy preferences, maybe there'll be a different balance of the equities here.
And I want to take that point because the carve out to which you refer was very specific. They didn't need to say that, but they are so, the Supremes, they were so aware of the sensitivities, which I suppose arguably might have given a different president pause for thought that if this ends up at the Supremes, he's going to lose.
Yes, and I think it's important to understand there might be 2 different claims that Trump would raise here. One would be a constitutional claim arguing that Article 2 empowers him to remove any officer notwithstanding statutory protections. That's the claim that the court rejected in Trump versus Wilcox. Here, he's making a second claim that he's operating pursuant to the statute, that the statute allows him to remove for cause, and cause exists. But that doesn't mean he will show cause exists.
Can I just sort of, let's take away the strict legal and look more at the jurisprudential side of it. How dangerous and risky is it to the system when it starts getting tested like this with the independence of the Fed. I mean, nobody's ever had cause to question it on this point before. And whilst he might be technically, he can do it, jurisprudentially, should they be testing it like this?
Sure. I think the question here is really one of financial instability and whether a Fed that is now politically beholden potentially to a president is going to be able to perform the same function and guarantee long-term stability of prices in the same way it could if the governors were independent and isolated as they're supposed to be under the statute. So I think that's the larger picture, the larger consequences that are at issue here. And certainly President Trump's action puts all of that at risk because he is attempting to do what presidents have not done before. He's asserting that there's cause to fire a governor and trying to put someone out of office. And again, there will be questions, for example, of what is cause as a matter of law, what are the facts on the ground. All of those things will have to be determined by a court, but certainly just the act of making that allegation and attempting to remove Governor Cook creates a different dynamic.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and putting it into perspective. Just what we needed to hear tonight. Thank you, ma'am.